we had a total of roughly 8 questions, and most of you answered these questions very correctly, and that you have done so. So this was the first question. So most of you answered this one correctly. This is posterior dislocation of shoulder. You can see the rounded out appearance. This is called light. So most of you answered it correctly. Next is this one. This was not answered by majority of the participants. So some has written some really interesting diagnosis which I am going to not discuss here. But here the finding is this is pancreas. You can see the tail of pancreas here. So what is happening here in the tail of pancreas? You can see here the pancreas is actually having two fork-like appearance. So together with this, it will look like a fish, no? So this is called fishtail deformity of pancreas, or it is part of pancreatic tail. Most of you might have been hearing this for a new time, so just remember this. So this one, many answered as neuropathic joint fractures and all, which are all present. I agree with this. There is a fracture here, and there are some other problems here also, neuropathic type changes here. But the major finding is this one here. This is called scalloping. This is called a scalloping sign. If nobody would have answered this thing, I would have given the other answers also, but 3 or 4 of the candidates have answered it correctly. So this is scalloping. Rheumatoid arthritis, the rest of the findings are also corresponding to rheumatoid arthritis. So the next one is, this is called tricutal fracture. This is something very tricky to understand. It is called the pooping duck sign. So this is the head of the duck, this is the body of the duck, and this is the tail. Okay, so this is how the duck is drawn here, and after that you can see a small fragment here. So this is the poop, that is feces. Okay, this is called pooping duck sign, or of tricutal fracture. Next one is most of you answered it. So please read everything regarding PSP and other degenerative diseases of brain. There are so many spotters in this session. This is a PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy, and this is called hummingbird sign. So this the head resembles a hummingbird. Okay. So there is a difference in ratio between the midbrain and the pons. These are all ratios you have to check while doing the reporting of MR, which if you need, we will put a video. You can put it in the comments. So hummingbird sign of progressive supranuclear cancer. So this, most of you have answered correctly. This is a reversal of attenuation. So this represents irreversible brain injury, brain death kind of situation. So this is commonly associated in young age group due to hypoxic injury. So this is white cerebellum sign. Okay, cerebellum sign in hypoxic ischemic brain injury. So this one, most of you have answered hockey stick sign, but here more than hockey, make sure that you answer it correctly. Okay, so the next one, okay, this is the CA, and the diagnosis is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Okay, prion disease or Kuru, like that you can say. So this is one of my favorite questions here. I thought very few will be answering this, but I am so happy that some of you guys have picked it up. So what happened here is, this is again the posterior dislocation of shoulder, and here we have a hyperintensity signal on T2 weighted MRI, T2 fat sat. This is a fat suppressed image, and this is T2 weighted image, where we have a very bright shiny lesion in the liver, and similarly you have a very bright shiny lesion in the adrenal gland on right side. So all these things combined, these are all different types of light bulb signs. So this is light bulb sign of dislocated shoulder, this is light bulb sign of hemangioma, this is light bulb sign of pheochromocytoma. So remember this. Okay, just put this so that you will understand there are so many signs which have similarities between other pathologies also. So remember that, don't get confused. Okay, light bulb sign of all common light. So round 2, this see, we all are very good. I found out that all of you are very good with science and cases, but you don't know about basic machine physics and other things like basic machines, recent advances and all, mostly because you are not concentrating on those parts until you are writing exam. This should not be the scenario. You should concentrate equally on every aspect of your academics. This one, only very 2 or 3 people have answered it correctly. This is actually a machine where we used to call for a study called SPECT, SPECT, SPECT. So you abbreviation wise, you know what it is. So you have to discover yourselves among this. This study is SPECT-CT. Okay, SPECT. So what is this? So some of you have written MRI fusion with PET. I was so surprised. Like, say, which image you will get Calvaria this bright or reborn this bright? You will get it on CT only. Other informations which were given were per CT perfusion imaging and all. Of course, PET-CT is a type of perfusion image, but it is not per CT perfusion. CT perfusion image will be different. It will not look like this. So this is actually an interesting case also. This case represents differential activity in the frontal area when compared to other parts. These motor areas are very dark, that means red. So this signifies that red area signifies good activity and yellow area signifies less activity. Apart from your motor areas, remaining entire brain looks a little bit less red. So this is seen usually in cases of Alzheimer's disease. Okay, this image was taken from a journal where Alzheimer's disease was portrayed. So I don't want you to write study is PET-CT. So this one is pretty funny. The thing is that I don't want you writing this name like that. So the answer was by Siemens. That is the first approved 7 Tesla MRI machine. I think it will take so long before it reaches India. Okay, FDA has approved evaluation using a 7 Tesla. So here I have put a tricky thing. This is actually a clue. So you guys have expanded it according to your knowledge, or maybe you have googled it, I don't know. But the answer I not track density imaging, which is a part of diffusion tensor imaging or your tractography, but it is the most commonly approved one. But you have to learn about total digital imaging. This is also a recent advance. Okay, hopefully you will read about it after this session. Okay. Then again, imaging physics also, very few have managed to answer everything correctly. Most of you answered this as T2, A as T2, B, everybody has answered as flare. C, only 2 or 3 people have confused it with this. There is actually a pathology here, but I didn't ask about the pathology, so you are not. I don't want you to answer about it. It's okay. So we'll start from the coronal. This is coronal T2. Okay. So I put the coronal T2 so that you will not get confused that with this A question. So see, there are a lot of difference between this and this. Someone of you have answered this as T2FS image. Okay, I would have agreed to that, but this is not T2FS. There are a lot of other things here. So in a T2FS image, basically it will be like only the fat will be suppressed. The remaining everything will be the same. Here what you are seeing is when you compare, you can take flare. This is T2 flare. You can take the T2 flare as the comparative image. See the bone marrow here. This much is the bone thickness here. You can see that only this much is the bone thickness. See how thick it is on this side. So the only imaging sequence where calcified things or bleed or everything will appear darker or bigger, or what you call as blooming, is on GR images. I thought you guys have already gone through my brain MRI lecture series. In that I have clearly explained these things. But those of you who have not gone through it, please go to that video. Go and watch those videos now. Okay. Answer says T2 star or GRE axial imaging, T2 flare and T2 axial flare and T2 spin echo coronal. So remember these terms. You have to write it in full when you are writing for FRCR and similar exams. They might ask these. So round 3 cases, 50% of you have answered almost 4 out of 5. Only one question you guys had a confusion. Remaining all have answered correctly. So this is what you have: a keratocyst, you have a calcified fox, and you have bifid ribs. So this is when this is a pathology here. For who have not seen here, you have a cystic lesion on both sides of this thing. This is like an odontogenic lesion. So this is a keratocyst. You have keratocyst. So you have a dense calcification of the Fox. This is a parasagittal section or midline section of the sagittal plane. So you can see dense calcification of Fox. And you have here, you have to look a little close. This is actually a bifid rib. So you have a bifid rib here. So these three things together, one common Gorlin-Gold syndrome. Read about it. So this one is a straightforward case. You can see multiple deformed bones. Almost all the bones are deformed. There is a very narrow thoracic cage with somewhat like a bell-shaped type of configuration. Very narrow thoracic cage, and this is actually thanatophoric. Case of thanatophoric dysplasia. There are a lot of types. Read about the types and read about the differences between each type. Dysplasia, that is bone dysplasia itself, is a very tough chapter to learn. Learn it, understand it, and it is very commonly asked in spotters as well as in your exams. So this is my favorite question in the case section. Only one person had answered it correctly, and I've given marks accordingly. So the study is Syndigram. It can be HMPAO, it can be the technetium and all. But the thing is that most of you have written this as brain death. Actually, you are wrong. The reason is in Syndigram, that is a logical thing. Syndigram, wherever there is good uptake, it will be dark. So the brain has good uptake, then how it can be a brain death? Now I'll show what it is. So this is brain scintigraphy with normal tracer uptake. So this is actually how your empty Calvaria sign looks. Okay, this is empty Calvaria sign where there is relatively less uptake of the brain when you compare with the rest of the body. So this is how you look in brain death. So this is your hot nose sign, which most of you have written. So I hope with this one I have cleared the doubt. Okay. Next is this one, only I think 10% of the total people have written, maybe 5 or 7 or 10 people have written. I'm not sure, but very few have written the answer correctly. This is actually, you can see, it's a vascular syndrome. You have so much of abnormal collaterals on the surface. You have even prominent collaterals inside the body as well. This is like somebody has written this as periuterine some collateral and all. So this is actually multiple hemangiomas. These are all phlebolytes of hemangiomas. Here and all you can see some other channels as well. So these images are representative of Klippel Trenaunay syndrome. Read about it. Okay, so this is a way I thought this would be the easiest thing to diagnose. I think so many of you have still to see this case. This is actually a post-op case, calvariotomy, and they remove the flap and they keep it to reduce the pressure. What happens is that the skin might sink like this, and this is something like a paradoxical thing. Instead of bulging out, usually it should bulge out like this, it will sink like this. So what happens here is this itself can cause local mass effect and symptoms. So this is called skin flap syndrome. I have given marks to anyone have answered close to this or even the paradoxic syndrome also. Okay, so thank you all. I am so happy that all of you have tried your best and participated in it. And I have tended to all of your answers personally, and I have sent you my personal emails as much as possible. This time I am happy to say, when you compare to last time, the participation, maybe the questions were a bit off. It was not all classical radiology questions. I don't know why, but the participation numbers were only quarter of the last one. So I'm not happy that way. Maybe you guys were busy with something, but I hope in the next quiz more of you will be participating, because not for the cash prize itself, but still you are learning a lot of things in this. I am a believer who say that you will learn more when you make something wrong than you are answering it correctly. Okay, so we are going to the so it's congratulations to Dr. Gopinath, who is secondary DNB candidate in KMCH Kovai. Congratulations. He has scored 17 out of 18, and kudos to that. And the others who had just missed by maybe 1 or 2 marks, So the names are the other candidates who have scored around 16 out of 18. Two people have scored second place, Dr. Ayush and Dr. Pankaja. And similarly, two people have scored 15 out of 18, Dr. Sayan and Dr. Anil. So we have total 1, 2, 3 questions I have announced just now. All others, there are so many people who have scored right 14 out of 18. Majority of you have performed very well, and kudos to that. And do continue participating in the interventionist channel quizzes. Do watch the videos. Do follow the interventionist on Instagram, and just use your mobile phone to scan the code. Okay, thank you.